Good morning. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Catherine from the Sewing Studio Fabric Superstore and the Sewing Studio at Lady Lake. Thank you so much for joining me this Friday morning, 5-Minute Friday, or at any other time you happen to be watching this video. I cannot wait to talk to you guys about what we have in store for today. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about how to avoid hooping nightmares. I had a class recently and we had an incident, so I thought, well, I'm going to talk to everyone about this today. So I want to start by talking about some do's and some don'ts. Just a couple do's, couple don'ts. Okay, overhead, Miss Kelsey. So one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to pull or stretch our fabric, okay, outside of the hoop. So in other words, once you have your hoop in here and you don't want to start tugging the life out of this, because what happens is once you do that and you then take your project out of the hoop and remove it from your stabilizer, is that everything relaxes. Kelsey, can we get a close-up? So from over here you guys can see I've started to get some puckering around the outside of my piece because I stretched that fabric, it embroidered it on the stretched outness, and then when it's done and you take it out, there's no tension holding it aside anymore, so your fabric kind of comes back into place and scooches all up around your design. So that's definitely something you do not want to do. Okay, let me set that aside. The next thing that you do not want to do, and this is kind of obvious, but I'm going to say it out loud without loud words. Overhead, Miss Kelsey. Bad positioning. Take the time to position properly. Okay, so here is an example of bad positioning. I don't want to do an applique pocket and have it totally akimbo to my stripes. So you need to take the time to find a way to position your design so that it lands in the proper position on your hoop, which sounds kind of funny from the front, Kelsey. But even one time I had a customer who was trying to embroider across the back shoulder blade area of a jacket, and accidentally she had hooped her jacket in such a way and she wasn't looking at the way she had hooped with what was on the screen, and so she ended up embroidering the name of the child she was trying to embroider the jacket for down the spine of the jacket as opposed to across the shoulder blades. So you have to pay attention to where your feet are. What is the angle of the design? Where do you want it at? And make sure you line all of that up. Okay, some things you need to do, all right? Overhead, Miss Kelsey. Some do's. Some things that you need to do. Okay, you always want to check under your hoop. All right, from the front for a second. So as we take our hoop and we're putting it on the bed of our machine, we want to pull our fabric so that the fabric goes through the hoop first, and then you do a little swim breaststroke. Make sure everything is clear out from under your hoop because the last thing you want is to hoop around and over. I've seen it happen with t-shirts where a sleeve falls underneath. I've seen it happen with just cotton, just exactly like this. I mean, I'm not even going to be able to get this out of the hoop because the whole thing is now sewn onto the hoop. So you always got to do your little breaststroke and check under your hoop. I even had one time in a class where a customer put her instructions on the bed of her machine, and we're talking, and all of a sudden I hear bap, 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 because she started embroidering through her instructions for the class. So clear your area and make sure you have nothing in and around and under your hoop. Okay, another thing that you want to do from overhead, you want to match the size of your design to the size of your hoop, okay? You do not want to have great phenomenal power with an itty-bitty living space, to quote Aladdin. Because if you do one little teeny tiny design in a gigundo hoop, from a close-up, Miss Kelsey, even before I take this out of the hoop, you can see the puckering around that design. Because there isn't enough support around it, it has started to pucker in on the edges of the design. So you want to match the project for the size of the hoop. If I have a small design, I want to use a smaller hoop. If I have a big design, obviously you have to use a bigger hoop. But don't be using small designs in big, gigantic hoops. It's not a good thing. All right. There are some things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier as you start to hoop, okay? First of all, there's a product called Wonder Tape. Wonder Tape is a double sticky tape, wash away Wonder Tape. And it can be used in a million different ways. I absolutely love Wonder Tape. However, for our purposes, I have placed Wonder Tape on the bottom of my hoop. And what you do is you peel away the tape, because it's a double sticky. So you peel away the tape, and then we're going to use it like an extra set of fingers. All right, so once you get that tape peeled off, you're going to lay your stabilizer kind of like over your hoop, and you'll lay your fabric nearby. And if you've drawn your crosshairs, you're going to know right where to put your hoop. And because this is sticky tape here, you just set it on top of the hoop, give it a good push down, and now, I mean, you're going to pick up your fabric and your hoop, but even without doing that, you can see it's grabbing my fabric. So now I can grab a hold of my fabric and my hoop and kind of take it over to my outer ring and then just gently set it into place. And when you do it that way, everything kind of like lays in its position. And I have a little bit of a wrinkle there, so I can feasibly pull it a little bit if I want to, but I don't want to pull so tight and stretch every angle because that's too much, right? So we're gonna just gently set it on our fabric. It'll stick to it, add extra hands, bring it over and place it in your inner ring. So that's a really good thing, a really good hint that you can do with Wonder Tape. Next, you might want to prevent hoop burn by floating your project. In other words, your project is not in your hoop at all. You're floating it on top. So if you take from the overhead real quick, Miss Kelsey, with a towel, I like to line the edge of my towel up against one of the edges of my hoop, just so that I have things positioned really well. And when you do that, you're actually pinning your project to your stabilizer in your hoop. Obviously, I would use topper on this, but that's not the point of today. The point is this is floating. And this will prevent your inner ring from smashing an outline, it's called hoop burn, that doesn't actually go away. So floating your project is one way that you can prevent that, especially with towels. It'll help prevent that hoop burn. Okay. As you go to hoop, you don't want your hoop sliding around your table. You want to find a way for your hoop to kind of like be held in place. So Dime actually came out with this hoop mat. It's a non-slip hoop mat. And the cool thing about it is it actually has a grid on it as well. So from the overhead, Miss Kelsey, if I have positioned and drawn my little crosshairs here, I can place my project, if I have folded my project, let's say I'm doing a towel, I can actually place my project where I can line up one corner and see my hoop isn't going anywhere because this is rubbery. Even on the table, you can see it's sticking to the table. So it's holding on to my hoop for me. Again, it's an extra set of hands. So a hoop mat is a really lovely thing that you can have that will allow you to get that extra grip so that you can position in your hoop a little bit more easily. Okay, other than your hoop mat, one thing you might want to remember is that this little piece of plastic template that came in your box with your hoop or came in your box with your machine, this is not a coaster. This is a positioning template. So these grids come with, from overhead, Miss Kels, little holes and a grid. So I can use my pencil and draw a little circle, little target marks on my stabilizer to help me put things in position. So don't forget, this little thing is not a waste of time. It's not a coaster. This will help you get things in the proper position. Okay, another thing that you might want to think about is how to put the whole thing together. All right, so when I go to put things together, I'll generally lay my stabilizer over my bottom ring. Once I've done that, I will kind of get my piece into position, just gently, if I haven't used my Wonder Tape. And once I'm there, I like to take my right side of my hoop and I kind of like find my top and my bottom, and I kind of use my hoop to smooth out my fabric so I haven't had to stretch it. And then I can gently work my way from the right to the left, putting my hoop down into position. The big thing about that too is that you've got hoop screws. Most of the time you can tighten them, loosen them with your hands, or there's tools for that. But you want to loosen this before you start and put your ring in and tighten it where it's just barely tight enough so that I can push this in without a lot of effort. So in other words, if I have taken this and tightened the life out of it, by the time I go to put my ring in, I'm having to use, can you go from the front for a second? I'm having to use my entire weight to get that hoop down in there. If hooping hurts, you're not hooping it correctly. Hurts you, hurts your fabric, hurts anything. So you want to loosen your hoop screw, gently place your inner ring in there so that it fits with a little bit of grip, but not a whole lot, so that you can smooth your hoop down into place, okay? So that's one thing that I like to do. One of the very, very helpful things that have come out is that on the new Baby Lock Solaris and the Brother Luminaire, there's actually hoops that have a locking mechanism. So I can lock this hoop, and right now, if I have it super loose, you can see I've got some wiggle room around the side here. I can come up and down, okay? So I'm gonna place my inner ring in there ahead of time, tighten my screw, have to come off the table so I can get to it. I'm going to tighten my screw, and then once my screw is tight, all I have to do is then lock my hoop, and it'll properly grip things as the hoop kind of brings itself in to lock things into position. So that's pretty much it for today. Thank you so much for watching me. I hope you might have learned a thing or two, especially that Wonder Tape. That's a really good hack that allows you to get an extra set of grip. And the hoop mats that you've got that non-slip surface, they're very helpful in helping you get yourself into position, giving you that extra set of hands and all that kind of stuff. So don't over tighten. Make sure you do your little swim check, perimeter check. Nothing is caught, folded, turned under anything else. And good luck with everything that you do. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Bye, everyone.